So now we are going to continue on our review, dealing with some more angles. What angle is supplementary to angle FGB? Well, first, let me figure out what FGB is. It's that angle there. And supplementary, hopefully you remember, adds up to 180 degrees. So actually, this angle and this angle are going to be supplementary because they're going to add up to 180 degrees. To review some of my prior vocabulary, these are also going to form a linear pair. So the angle that is supplementary to FGB is angle BGC. Next question. What angle is vertical to FGE? So I said vertical angles form an X. So there was that right angle symbol there. So the angle that is vertical to it, if you need me to highlight it, you can, is that angle. Even though there's a ray going through it, this is one larger angle, made up of two smaller, but that's angle AGC. I could call it CGA. So now, if AGC, so AGC is 7x plus 48. Find the value of x so that AGFG, so that symbol there, remember, means the lines are perpendicular. And perpendicular lines make 90-degree angles. So that would mean that 7x plus 48 would have to be equal to 90. So, see, 90 would equal 7x plus 48. I would subtract 48 from both sides and get 42. 90 minus 48 is 42 equals 7x. X equals 6. And they wanted me just to find the variable. So that's my final answer. So for the next two problems, number 20 and 21. So for number 20, find the value of x and y if UV bisects TW and measure of angle something. The measure of angle something I've scratched out there, it's a distractor, which means I don't need it. And sometimes it's hard to figure out what do I need and what don't I need, but I'm finding I'm finding side lengths. I do not need an angle measure. So whenever you see the word bisect, I want you to think that means it cuts it into two equal parts. So that means that 3x minus 2 would be equal to 3y plus 1. So I actually want to show you here how I think about math. So I wrote 3x minus 2 equals 3y plus 1, and then I realized that doesn't really help, because then I have two variables. So let me try something else. And I look and I say, well then, if these are all bisected, then UZ is congruent to ZV. So I can set them equal to each other. So 3y minus 1 equals 2y plus 6. I can then solve, subtracting 2y from both sides. 3y minus 2y is just y. Bring down the negative 1 equals 6. Way. I can add 6 to both sides, and y equals 7. So they wanted me to find x and y. So now I can plug that 7 that I got for y back into the original equation that had two variables. 3x minus 2 equals 3 times 7, because y is equal to 7, plus 1. So 3x minus 2 equals 22. Add 2 to both sides. 3x equals 24. and x equals 8. I want to backtrack for a moment before I go on to this problem, and I want to talk about convex and concave and irregular shapes. So, problems 12 through 14. Which figures are convex and which figures are concave? You could have named them. You could have written 1, 2, 3. I wrote ABC. The one that I tend to prefer to do is the concave first, because concave means basically it's like pushed in. And I can see that figure C is concave. So figure A and figure B are convex. So which are regular and which are not? Regular means all sides are congruent and all angles are congruent. So if I look at the triangle, those markings there tell me that all sides are congruent, and these markings here tell me all of the angles are congruent. So B is regular. Some people will think A is regular, and while all the angles are congruent, not all 4 sides are congruent. Yes, the longer sides are congruent to each other, but they're not congruent to the shorter sides. So only B is regular, only that triangle. Now let's go back to 21. And for 21, in each polygon, in the polygon A, B, C, D, E, F, solve for the length of each side. I can see that this is a regular polygon, meaning all of the sides are congruent. That means this side, CD, is congruent to DE. And I can set that up. So, 8x minus 4 equals 5x plus 7. I subtract 5x from both sides. I get 3x on the left-hand side. I add 4 to both sides. And I get x equals 11/3. Now, the problem asked you to solve for each side. When you plug it back in, you're going to have to deal with a fraction, and this will not be the case on the test. So in class, I did not go through how to solve that, but I'm going to do that right now on the review. So I'm going to have 5 times 11 over 3 plus 7. So multiplying the fraction, 5 times 11 is 55/3 plus 7. I need to change the 7 into something that has a common denominator of 3. So 7 over 1 is 21/3. I've taken that 7 and I've put it as 21/3. And I have to add those. 55 plus 21 is 76/3. Okay? So 55, 21. And let's see if 76 is divisible by 3. It says simplify, and actually in this case make it a whole number. 3 does not go into 16 evenly, so your answer is 76/3. And I think we're caught up now. Yeah, we've done all of these. So let's go on here in the video to 22. Find USW, and actually that's the measure of angle USW. If the measure of angle USW is 6x plus 40, and the measure of TSR is 5x plus 50. So the first off, I want to figure out what is the relationship between the angles. So let's even figure out what angles we have here. I have angle USW, and I have angle TSR. And when I draw that, hopefully you see I have lines that intersect, that make an X. So I have vertical angles. And vertical angles are what? They're congruent to each other. So that means that 6x plus 40 is going to equal 5x plus 50. Okay, I subtract x on 5x on both sides. I get x plus 40 equals 50. So I get x equals 10. They did not want me to solve for the variable, though. They wanted to find the actual measure of USW. So I'm going to substitute that back in. 6 times 10 is 60, plus 40 is 100. And let's do one more. Use the drawing at the left for the questions. I'm actually going to only do question 23. If DCE is 4x plus 15, and ECF and they want me to find the measure of something. And I can see that those are adjacent angles, but I don't know that they're not a linear pair, so they don't add up to 180. So I really don't have enough information yet. So let me go back and see what else they told me up here. So they've said, in the figure, CB and CD are opposite rays. Well, that doesn't help me with this problem, because CB is not anything we're dealing with here. CE bisects DCF. So that means, it's a color code again, this is an angle bisector of this angle. That means this and this are congruent. So let's go back over what we found out. Goes through it here. What is the relationship between DCE and ECF? They're adjacent. So we have to go back and find some additional information. We're told that CE bisects angle DCF, meaning it cuts it into two smaller equal angles. They're congruent. Okay? So DCE is congruent to ECF. So I can set this up. 4x plus 15, which was my value for DCE, is equal to 6x minus 5, which is my value of ECF. I can subtract 4x from both sides. I get 15 equals 2x minus 5. Add 5 to both sides. 2x equals 20, and x equals 10. And if I'm starting to move too fast for you, you can always pause the YouTube video. They wanted me to find DCE. So I'm going to substitute in the value. So I'm going to take 10, because that's what x is, and I'm going to substitute it in for 4. We substitute it in for x, sorry. 4 times 10 plus 15. So that's 40 plus 15 equals 55.